Jake Martinez stepped into the giant crystal hall where the most powerful beings in the galaxy made their decisions. The walls sparkled with colors he had never seen on Earth. Hundreds of alien creatures sat in floating chairs, looking down at him like he was some kind of bug they found under a rock. He wore his best diplomatic uniform, but it felt cheap compared to the shining armor and flowing robes of the aliens around him. Jake had been Earth's ambassador for 3 years now, and he thought he understood how things worked in space. Today, he was about to learn he was wrong. The creature at the front of the room stood up. It looked like a giant bug with too many eyes and sharp claws for hands. Its name was Vexithera, and it spoke for the Galactic Council. When it talked, its voice came through a machine that made the words sound cold and final. "Human ambassador," the creature said. "We have made our decision about your species." Jake felt his stomach drop. For months, the council had been talking about the human problem. Other species complained that humans were too violent, too quick to fight, too good at making weapons. Some aliens said humans scared them. Others said humans would destroy the galaxy if they were not stopped. "Your people make too many weapons," Vexithera continued. "Your guns are too powerful. Your bombs are too dangerous. Your ships carry too much firepower. This ends today." The hall went quiet. Jake could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. "From this day forward, all human weapons are banned. Your plasma rifles, your missile launchers, your energy shields, your fusion bombs, all of it is illegal. Any human ship found with these weapons will be taken away. Any human caught carrying these weapons will go to prison." Jake tried to speak, but his voice came out as a whisper. "What about our right to defend ourselves?" The alien's many eyes all focused on him at once. "You will be defended by Council forces. You do not need weapons anymore." Around the hall, other aliens made sounds that Jake guessed were laughter. A few looked sorry for him, but most seemed happy about the decision. Jake thought about his home planet, about the millions of humans living on colony worlds scattered across the galaxy. They would be helpless. "You have 30 days to turn in all weapons," Vexithera said. "Council inspectors will visit all human worlds to make sure you follow this law. Do not try to hide anything from us." The meeting was over. Jake walked out of the crystal hall feeling like his legs were made of rubber. In the hallway, he pulled out his communication device and sent an emergency message to Earth. Back on Earth, General Carl Johnson sat in his office reading Jake's report. The words on the screen made him angry, but he did not show it. Carl had been a soldier for 30 years. He had fought in wars on 6 different planets. He knew what happened to people who could not defend themselves. His assistant, Colonel Amy White, came into the room. She was young but smart, and Carl trusted her, more than anyone else in the military. "Sir, we're getting reports from all over the galaxy," Amy said. "The Council is already sending ships to collect our weapons. They're not waiting for the 30 days. Carl stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see human soldiers, training with equipment that would soon be taken away. These men and women had spent years learning how to use advanced weapons. Soon, they would have nothing. "Amy, do you know what humans used as weapons before we invented guns?" Carl asked. "Swords." "Sir, bows and arrows?" "Before that," Carl said. "Before we learned to make metal tools, before we discovered fire. What did the first humans use to hunt and fight?" Amy thought for a moment. "Their hands, sir. Their teeth. Rocks and sticks." Carl smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just found new prey. "The Council thinks they know everything about human weapons," he said. "They made a list of our guns and bombs and missiles. They think if they take those away, we will be helpless." He turned away from the window and looked at Amy with eyes that seemed to glow with dangerous ideas. "They forgot something important," Carl continued. "Before humans had any weapons at all, we were still the most dangerous hunters on our planet. We killed animals twice our size with nothing but rocks and sharp sticks. We survived ice ages and droughts and disasters that wiped out bigger, stronger creatures." Amy began to understand what he was thinking. "Sir, are you suggesting we go back to fighting with primitive weapons?" "Not exactly," Carl said. I'm suggesting we remember what made those primitive weapons so effective. It wasn't the rock or the stick that made early humans dangerous. It was the human holding it. He walked over to his desk and pressed a button that activated a secure communication line. Within seconds, he was talking to scientists, doctors, and military planners all over Earth. I want to start a new project, he told them. Top secret, code name Primordial. We're going to explore human enhancement. If the Council wants to take away our weapons, fine. We'll make better weapons. We'll make weapons they can't take away, because they'll be part of us. Over the next few days, Carl's people worked day and night. They studied human biology, looking for ways to make people stronger, faster, and more dangerous. They researched old Earth legends about warriors who could break stone with their bare hands. They examined the bones and muscles of ancient human fighters. Dr. Peter Kane was one of the first scientists to join the project. He specialized in genetics and bone structure. When Carl explained what he wanted, Peter's eyes lit up with excitement. It's possible, Peter said. We can make human bones harder than steel. We can make muscles stronger than any animal on Earth. The technology exists, we just never tried it because we had better weapons. How long would it take? Carl asked. 6 months to develop the process, another 6 months to train the first batch of enhanced soldiers. But sir, this would change humans forever. Once we start down this path, there's no going back. Carl looked out the window again. Council ships were landing at military bases around the world, collecting human weapons like they were gathering toys from children. Soon, every gun, every missile, every piece of military technology would be gone. Doctor, Carl said quietly, if the Council wants to treat us like primitive creatures, then we'll show them what primitive creatures can do when they're angry. The project began that night. In secret laboratories hidden around Earth, scientists started working on ways to turn human beings into living weapons. The Council had made a terrible mistake. They thought they were taking away humanity's teeth. Instead, they had just made humans realize how sharp their teeth could be. 6 months had passed since the Council took away humanity's weapons. Dr. Peter Kane worked in a hidden laboratory built deep underground beneath what looked like a normal farm. The facility was so secret that even the workers above ground did not know what was happening below their feet. Peter stared at the test results on his computer screen. The numbers looked impossible, but he had checked them 5 times. He called his partner, Dr. Rachel Stone, over to look. Rachel, look at this, he said, pointing at the screen. Subject 7's bone density has increased by 400%. His knuckles are now harder than titanium steel. Rachel leaned over his shoulder to read the data. She was an expert in human muscle development, and she had been working on making human muscles stronger and faster. Her results were just as amazing. That's nothing compared to what I've achieved, she said with excitement. Subject 12 can now lift a car over her head. Her leg muscles can generate enough force to jump over a building. And the best part is, from the outside, she still looks like a normal human woman. The underground laboratory was full of volunteers who had agreed to become test subjects for the enhancement program. These men and women were soldiers, police officers, and Marines who wanted to help defend humanity even after their weapons were taken away. The process was not easy. First, the volunteers had to undergo surgery to strengthen their bones. Doctors would break the bones carefully, then inject them with a special mixture of carbon fibers and calcium compounds. As the bones healed, they became incredibly hard and strong, but they still looked normal on medical scans. Next came the muscle enhancement. Special proteins were injected into the volunteers' muscles, making the fibers grow thicker and more powerful. The volunteers had to exercise for hours every day to help their bodies adapt to the changes. The most difficult part was the nerve enhancement. Doctors had to carefully modify the volunteers' nervous systems to make their reflexes faster and their coordination better. This process was dangerous and not everyone survived it, but those who did became something new. Humans who were stronger and faster than any natural person could ever be. In the mountains of Colorado, Master Sergeant Tony Garcia trained the first group of enhanced soldiers. The training facility was hidden inside an old mine shaft, far away from any place where council inspectors might find it. Tony had been one of the first volunteers for the enhancement program. His bones were now harder than any armor the military had ever made. His muscles could generate incredible force. His reflexes were so fast that he could catch bullets with his bare hands. "Listen up, people," he told the 20 soldiers standing in front of him. "You are no longer normal humans. Your bodies are weapons now. But being strong and fast is not enough. You need to learn how to use your new abilities." Private Kelly Davis raised her hand. She was a small woman who had always been underestimated because of her size. Now, after the enhancement process, she was one of the most dangerous people on Earth. "Sergeant, how do we hide what we can do from the council inspectors?" she asked. Tony smiled. "The same way a tiger hides its claws until it's ready to strike. You act normal, you talk normal, you look normal. But when someone threatens you or your people, you show them what humanity really is." He led the group to a training area where concrete blocks were stacked up like building bricks. "Kelly, show them what you learned yesterday." Kelly walked up to one of the concrete blocks. It was 3 feet thick and weighed over 1,000 pounds. She placed her hand on it gently, like she was petting a cat. Then, without any warning, she drove her elbow into the center of the block. The concrete exploded into pieces. Chunks of rock flew across the room. When the dust settled, there was nothing left but powder and small fragments. Kelly's arm was completely undamaged. "The council's inspectors scan for weapons," Tony explained. "They look for metal and energy signatures. They don't scan for bone density or muscle fiber strength. To them, we look like normal, helpless humans." The other soldiers stared at Kelly with amazement and fear. They knew that the same power was growing inside their own bodies, but seeing it demonstrated was still shocking. Over the next few months, the enhancement program spread to secret facilities around the world. Doctors and scientists who had worked on the original project taught others how to perform the procedures. Soon, enhanced humans were training in hidden locations on every continent. The council inspectors never suspected anything. When they visited Earth and the human colonies, they found exactly what they expected to find: humans without weapons going about their daily lives. The inspectors were trained to look for technology, not biology. They never thought to examine human bone structure or muscle density. Commander Lisa Brooks had been the head of Earth's space fleet before the weapon ban. Now she commanded a group of enhanced space marines who protected human ships and stations. Her own body had been modified to work in zero gravity, with bones and muscles adapted for space combat. "The council thinks they've made us helpless," she told her officers during a secret meeting on an asteroid mining station. "They're about to learn that humans are never more dangerous than when someone tries to back us into a corner." Her officers nodded in agreement. They had all volunteered for enhancement, knowing that the process might kill them. They had all survived, and now they were ready to protect their people with their own bodies as weapons. Dr. Kane received reports from enhancement facilities around the galaxy. Human colonies that had seemed defenseless were now home to men and women with superhuman abilities. The process was spreading faster than he had hoped. "We've created something new," he told Rachel as they reviewed the latest data. "These aren't just enhanced humans anymore. They're the next step in human evolution." Rachel looked at the reports from colonies in distant star systems. "Peter, what happens when the council finds out what we've done?" "They'll be terrified," Peter said quietly. "For millions of years, every species in the galaxy has believed that biological limits can't be overcome. We've just proven them wrong." The enhanced humans continued their training, learning to hide their abilities while preparing for the day when they would need to use them. They knew that day was coming soon. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and humans had too many enemies who thought they were now easy targets. But humanity had learned something important during those months of secret enhancement. They had learned that their greatest weapon was not any gun or bomb they could build. Their greatest weapon was their refusal to give up, their willingness to adapt and overcome any challenge. The council had tried to take away their claws. Instead, they had taught humans how to grow new ones, claws made of bone and muscle and pure human determination that could never be confiscated or banned. The cargo ship New Horizon drifted through space in the Kepler system, carrying supplies to a human mining colony. Captain Susan Perry stood on the bridge, watching the stars through the main window. Her ship had no weapons. The Council had taken them all away months ago. Susan looked normal on the outside. She was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and kind eyes. But hidden inside her body were modifications that made her more dangerous than any weapon the Council had banned. Her bones were harder than steel. Her muscles were stronger than hydraulic cables. Her reflexes were faster than computer processors. The alarm started ringing. Red lights flashed across the bridge as the ship's sensors detected incoming vessels. "Captain," called out Navigator Jim Watson from his station, "we have 4 ships approaching fast. They're not responding to our communication signals." Susan knew what this meant. Pirates had found them, and they thought the New Horizon would be easy prey. After all, it was just a defenseless human cargo ship with no weapons to fight back. "All crew to emergency stations," Susan announced over the ship's communication system. "We have unwelcome visitors coming aboard." The 25 crew members of the New Horizon moved quickly to their positions. To anyone watching, they looked like normal civilian workers preparing to surrender to pirates. But half of them had undergone the same enhancement process as Susan. They were ready for a fight that their enemies could not imagine. The pirate ships were Korath vessels, ugly black ships covered in spikes and weapon ports. The Korath were known throughout the galaxy as vicious raiders who showed no mercy to their victims. They had sharp claws, thick armor-like skin, and a reputation for eating the people they captured. The lead pirate ship fired a beam that disabled the New Horizon's engines. Then it attached itself to the cargo ship like a parasite. Susan could hear the sound of cutting tools as the pirates burned through the hull to create an entrance. "Remember," she told her crew over their private communication channel, "act scared until I give the signal. Let them think we're helpless." The first Korath pirate broke through the hull and entered the cargo bay. He was 8 feet tall with muscles like tree trunks and teeth like knives. His armor was covered with the bones of previous victims. Behind him came 6 more pirates, all carrying energy rifles and looking forward to an easy raid. Susan walked into the cargo bay with her hands raised, pretending to surrender. The lead pirate looked at her and made a sound that might have been laughter. "Weak, human female," he growled in broken English. "Where is your gold? Where are your weapons?" "We don't have weapons," Susan said, trying to sound frightened. "The Council took them all away. Please don't hurt us." The pirates found this very funny. They had heard about the weapon ban and had been raiding human ships ever since. In their experience, humans without weapons were as harmless as children. "No weapons?" the lead pirate said. "Then you cannot stop us from taking everything you own." He raised his energy rifle and pointed it at Susan's head. "Maybe we keep you alive for entertainment, or maybe we eat you now." That was the signal Susan had been waiting for. She moved faster than the pirate's eyes could follow. Her enhanced muscles launched her forward like a rocket. Her reinforced knuckles drove into the alien's chest with enough force to crack his armor and break the ribs underneath. The pirate flew backward and hit the wall so hard that he left a dent in the metal. His rifle clattered to the floor, but he would never pick it up again. The other pirates stared in shock. They had never seen a human move that fast or hit that hard. Before they could react, the rest of Susan's enhanced crew attacked. Chief Engineer Ben Clark came through a side door, moving like a jungle cat. His fingernails had been reinforced with the same carbon fibers as his bones, making them sharper than razors. He raked his claws across a pirate's throat, cutting through the alien's thick skin like it was paper. Security Chief Maria Lopez jumped down from the ceiling where she had been hiding. Her enhanced leg muscles let her fall 20 feet and land, without injury. She grabbed a pirate's head with both hands and twisted it until she heard the neck bones snap. The pirates tried to fire their weapons, but the enhanced humans were too fast. They dodged the energy beams and closed in for hand-to-hand combat. The aliens' armor and shields were designed to stop bullets and laser beams, but they could not stop human claws and fists powered by superhuman strength. Cargo handler Steve Brown picked up a pirate who weighed 300 pounds and threw him across the room like a bag of garbage. The alien hit a support beam and crumpled to the floor. Cook Nancy Green, who looked like a sweet grandmother, grabbed a pirate's arm and bent it backward until the bones broke with sounds like tree branches snapping in a storm. The fight was over in less than 2 minutes. 7 pirates lay dead or dying on the cargo bay floor. The humans stood among the bodies, breathing hard but uninjured. Their clothes were torn and bloody, but the blood belonged to their enemies. Susan walked over to the lead pirate, who was still alive but could barely breathe. She knelt down next to him and spoke in a quiet voice. "You made a mistake," she told him. "You thought humans were weak because we don't carry weapons anymore. But you forgot something important. We don't need to carry weapons. We are weapons." The pirate tried to speak, but blood came out of his mouth instead of words. Susan stood up and looked at her crew. "Clean this up. Send a message to the other pirate ships. Tell them to leave our space and never come back." The remaining pirate ships received the message along with video footage of what had happened in the cargo bay. They saw human beings tearing through advanced armor with their bare hands. They saw creatures they had thought were weak prey turned into apex predators. The pirate ships left the Kepler system at maximum speed. The story of what happened on the New Horizons spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The ship's automatic recording systems had captured everything and transmitted it to human colonies and alien civilizations throughout known space. On Earth, General Carl Johnson watched the footage with satisfaction. His enhancement program had worked perfectly. The first real test had been a complete success. "Sir," Colonel Amy White said as she entered his office, "we're getting reports from all over the galaxy. Pirate attacks on human ships have stopped. Completely. Alien slave traders are avoiding human colonies. Even the Council military forces are asking for new instructions on how to deal with humans." Carl smiled the same dangerous smile he had shown 6 months ago when the weapon ban was announced. "Amy, send a message to all human colonies. Tell them the test was successful. Tell them it's time to begin Phase 2 of Operation Primordial." "What's Phase 2, sir?" "We stop hiding what we've become. It's time for the galaxy to learn that banning human weapons was the biggest mistake the Council ever made." The galaxy was about to discover that evolution could be guided by intelligence and determination. Humanity had been forced to adapt, and they had adapted in ways that would change the balance of power among the stars forever. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was called within hours of receiving the footage from the New Horizon incident. Alien representatives from across the galaxy gathered in the Crystal Hall, their voices raised in panic and confusion. Counselor Zethmar of the Avian Collective stood at his platform, his colorful feathers ruffled with anxiety. He had supported the weapon ban, believing it would make the galaxy safer. Now he was beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. "Fellow council members," he said, his voice echoing through the hall, "we must address what happened in the Kepler system. The humans, they killed 7 Korath pirates using only their bare hands." Counselor Vexthara, the insect-like being who had announced the weapon ban, clicked his claws nervously. "This is impossible. Our medical scans show that human bone structure is too weak to penetrate Korath armor. Human muscles are not strong enough to throw a 300-pound alien across a room." "Yet the footage shows exactly that happening," replied Counselor Mordeth of the Aquatic Union. Her blue skin rippled with concern. "Either our understanding of human biology is completely wrong, or the humans have found a way to change themselves." The debate continued for hours. Some council members wanted to send military forces to investigate human colonies. Others suggested that the footage was fake, created by human propaganda machines. But deep down they all knew the truth was simpler and more frightening. The humans had adapted. On Earth, the secret enhancement facilities were no longer hidden. Dr. Peter Kane and Dr. Rachel Stone now worked in laboratories that were funded by the Earth government and staffed by volunteers from every human colony in the galaxy. "The Council's emergency session has been all over the news," Rachel told Peter as they reviewed applications from new volunteers. "Every human in the galaxy wants to know about the enhancement program." Peter looked at the thousands of applications on his desk. Soldiers, civilians, farmers, teachers, doctors, people from every walk of life wanted to become enhanced. The news of humanity's new capabilities had spread like wildfire. "We can't enhance everyone," he said. "The process is still dangerous and we don't have enough facilities." "Maybe we don't need to enhance everyone," Rachel replied. "The psychological effect is already working. The entire galaxy thinks all humans might be enhanced. That fear is protecting our people just as much as the actual enhancements. She was right. Reports were coming in from human colonies throughout the galaxy. Alien criminals were avoiding human settlements. Pirate attacks had dropped to zero. Even legitimate businesses were treating human traders with new respect and caution. On the space station, Olympus, Lieutenant Commander Derek Ross led a squad of enhanced Marines in their first official mission. The station was hosting peace talks between two alien species who had been at war for decades. Council forces were supposed to provide security, but they had requested human assistance. Derek's squad looked like ordinary human soldiers in standard uniforms, but their bodies contained modifications that made them more dangerous than any weapon the Council had banned. Their bones were reinforced with carbon lattices. Their muscles were enhanced with synthetic proteins. Their reflexes were accelerated by neural modifications. Corporal Nina Bell could scale walls using fingertips that could dig into solid metal. Sergeant Paul King's skull had been reinforced until it was harder than tank armor. Private Mike Torres could punch through steel doors with his bare fists. The peace talks were going well until a group of separatist aliens decided to disrupt them with a terrorist attack. The attackers were Nexus rebels, creatures that looked like walking crystals with the ability to generate powerful energy fields. They had studied the station's defenses and planned their attack carefully. They knew the Council forces carried energy weapons that would be useless against their crystal armor. They expected the human guards to be helpless without their banned weapons. The first Nexus rebel emerged from a ventilation shaft in the main conference room, his crystal body glowing with deadly energy. He raised his arms to blast the peace negotiators with a beam that could cut through starship hull. Derek moved before the alien could fire. His enhanced speed carried him across the room in less than a second. His reinforced fist struck the rebel's crystal chest with enough force to crack diamond. The Nexus rebel's energy field collapsed as his body shattered into pieces. Crystal fragments scattered across the floor like broken glass. The other rebels attacked from different parts of the station, but Derek's squad was ready for them. Nina climbed through air ducts faster than the aliens could track her, dropping down behind them like a spider. Her reinforced claws cut through their crystal armor as easily as cutting paper. Paul used his enhanced skull like a battering ram, smashing through walls and doors to reach rebels who thought they were safe in hiding. His head could break through metal barriers that would stop military vehicles. Mike's fists generated so much force that he could punch holes in the station's armored walls. He trapped the rebels by destroying their escape routes, forcing them into areas where his teammates could finish them off. The terrorist attack lasted only 10 minutes. When it was over, 12 Nexus rebels lay dead or broken throughout the station. The human Marines stood among the wreckage, their uniforms torn but their bodies unharmed. The alien peace negotiators stared at the humans with expressions of fear and amazement. They had watched supposedly primitive creatures destroy attackers that Council military forces would have struggled to defeat. "How?" asked one of the negotiators, a serpentine being whose scales had turned pale with shock. "How did you do this without weapons?" Derek looked at the alien calmly. "We are the weapons," he said simply. The footage from the station attack was broadcast across the galaxy within hours. Combined with the New Horizon incident, it painted a clear picture for anyone willing to see the truth. Humans had not just adapted to the weapon ban, they had evolved beyond it. Dr. Kane received a priority communication from General Johnson while he was reviewing enhancement data. The general's face appeared on his screen with an expression of grim satisfaction. "Doctor, Phase 2 is complete. Every major alien civilization now knows that humans are more dangerous without weapons than they ever were with them." "What's Phase 3, General?" Peter asked. "Phase 3 is when we find out if the Council is smart enough to admit their mistake, or if we have to teach them a more direct lesson about human nature." Across the galaxy, alien governments were having emergency meetings. Military leaders were revising their threat assessments of human colonies. Scientists were trying to understand how a species could modify itself so quickly and effectively. The psychological impact was enormous. For millions of years, alien civilizations had believed that biological limits were absolute. They had developed technology to overcome physical weakness. But they had never imagined that the physical weakness itself could be eliminated. Humans had shattered that assumption. They had proven that evolution could be directed and accelerated through will, science, and determination. They had shown that the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy was not any gun or bomb, but the refusal to accept defeat. The Council faced a choice that would define the future of galactic civilization. They could try to suppress this new human capability through force, risking a war with a species that had already proven its adaptability, or they could accept that they had awakened something in humanity that could never be put back to sleep. In hidden facilities throughout human space, more volunteers underwent the enhancement process every day. They emerged stronger, faster, and more dangerous than any natural creature had ever been. But more importantly, they emerged with the confidence that comes from knowing that no enemy could ever make them truly helpless again. The galaxy was learning that there are some things more dangerous than weapons. One of those things was a species that refused to stay conquered, no matter what laws were passed against them. 1 year after the weapon ban, Ambassador Jake Martinez walked through the crystal halls of the Galactic Council for the second time. But everything felt different now. The aliens who had looked down at him like he was an insect now watched him with careful respect. Some even seemed afraid. Jake had undergone the enhancement process himself 6 months ago. From the outside, he looked the same as before, a middle-aged diplomat in a neat uniform. But inside, his bones were harder than the Council's ceremonial. Weapons and his muscles could generate force that would surprise anyone foolish enough to test them. The Great Hall was packed with representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy. News of humanity's transformation had spread to even the most remote star systems. Everyone wanted to see what the Council would do about the human problem, now that the problem had become much more complicated. Councillor Vexithara stood at the front of the assembly, but he no longer looked as confident as he had a year ago. His compound eyes darted nervously around the room as he spoke. Ambassador Martinez, he began, we have asked you here to discuss the recent changes in human behavior. Jake smiled politely. What changes would those be, Counselor? Do not pretend ignorance, snapped Counselor Zethmar, his feathers bristling with frustration. Your people have found ways to modify their bodies. They have turned themselves into living weapons. This violates the spirit of our weapon ban. Does it? Jake asked calmly. Your ban specifically mentioned plasma rifles, kinetic accelerators, fusion bombs, and energy shields. I don't recall any mention of human biology. The hall erupted in angry voices as alien representatives argued among themselves. Some demanded that humans be forced to reverse their enhancements. Others suggested that all human genetic modification should be banned. A few species proposed that humans should be expelled from the galaxy entirely. Jake waited for the noise to die down before speaking again. Honorable Council members, let me share some statistics with you. He activated a holographic display that showed data from across the galaxy. Since humans began our adaptation program, piracy in human shipping lanes has decreased by 100%. Attacks on human colonies have stopped completely. Slavery operations have avoided human space entirely. Even your own military reports show that areas with enhanced human presence are now the safest regions in the galaxy. Councillor Mordeth of the Aquatic Union raised one of her tentacles. That may be true, Ambassador, but your people have become something unnatural. They are no longer the species we agreed to allow into the galactic community. Unnatural? Jake repeated. Every species in this hall has used technology to overcome their biological limitations. Your people breathe underwater using artificial gills. The Korath use cybernetic implants to increase their strength. The ethereal architects exist as pure energy beings sustained by machines. How is human genetic enhancement different from any of that? The question hung in the air like a challenge. The truth was that alien civilizations had been modifying themselves with technology for millions of years. But they had always used external tools, machines, implants, and artificial enhancements. Humans had chosen to modify themselves from the inside out. General Carl Johnson entered the hall through a side door. He had not been invited to speak, but no one tried to stop him. His presence filled the room with an aura of quiet menace that made even the largest aliens nervous. "Counselor Vexithara," he said, addressing the insect-like being directly. "When you banned our weapons, you said you were doing it to protect galactic peace. How has that worked out?" Vexithara's claws clicked together anxiously. We did not anticipate this response from your species." "Of course you didn't," Carl said with a cold smile. "You thought you understood humans because you had cataloged our technology. But you never studied our history. You never learned what makes us who we are." He walked to the center of the hall, and every alien eye followed him. "Let me tell you. A story about humans, Council. On our homeworld there was once a species of giant predators called cave bears. They were bigger than humans, stronger than humans, and had natural weapons that could tear a person apart. But humans hunted them to extinction using nothing but pointed sticks and sharp rocks." The hall was completely silent now. Even the most warlike species listened with growing unease. "We did the same thing to saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, and mammoths. We survived ice ages that killed creatures 10 times our size. We crossed oceans on wooden boats and climbed mountains that touched the sky. We did all of this before we invented a single piece of advanced technology." Carl stopped walking and looked directly at Vexithara. "You banned our weapons because you thought that would make us harmless. But our weapons were never what made us dangerous. What made us dangerous was our refusal to accept defeat, no matter how impossible the odds seemed." Dr. Rachel Stone stepped forward from the human delegation. She had been quiet during the entire session, but now she had something important to say. "Counselor Vexithara, you said that humans had violated the spirit of your weapon ban, but I think you're wrong. I think we fulfilled exactly what you intended." The alien representatives looked confused. Rachel smiled and continued. "You wanted to eliminate human violence from the galaxy. You wanted to make sure that humans could never threaten other species with superior weapons. Well, congratulations. You succeeded." She activated another holographic display showing military statistics from across human space. Human-built weapons are no longer a threat to anyone because we don't need them anymore. Our soldiers don't carry guns because their hands are more effective than any rifle. Our ships don't mount cannons because our crews can tear through enemy hulls with their fingernails. The implications of her words sank in slowly. The Council had tried to disarm humanity, but instead they had forced humans to become more dangerous than any weapon they had ever built. Counselor Zethmar made one final attempt to regain control of the situation. "Even if we accept your interpretation of our laws, the fact remains that your enhancements have upset the balance of power in the galaxy. Other species feel threatened by your new capabilities." Jake looked around the hall at all the alien faces staring back at him. Some showed fear, others showed anger, but a few showed something that surprised him. "Respect. Counselor," he said, quietly, "the balance of power was already upset when you decided that one species should be disarmed while all others kept their weapons. We simply corrected that imbalance in our own way." He paused and let his next words carry the full weight of human determination. "But if other species feel threatened by our enhancements, we have a simple solution. They can enhance themselves, too. We're willing to share our research with anyone who wants to learn." The offer sent shockwaves through the assembled aliens. The idea of voluntary genetic modification was terrifying to species that had spent millennia believing their physical forms were fixed by nature. Vexithara looked around the hall desperately, seeking support from the other council members, but he found only uncertainty and fear. The council had painted themselves into a corner, and everyone knew it. Finally, the oldest member of the council spoke for the first time in decades. Ancient Lorthus of the Ethereal Architects was so old that most species had forgotten he still existed. When his voice filled the hall, it carried the weight of millions of years of wisdom. "Young Vexithara," he said, "in all my long existence, I have seen many species rise to greatness. The ones who survived and prospered were always those who adapted to challenges rather than trying to eliminate them. The humans have shown us something remarkable. They have weaponized evolution itself." He turned his ancient gaze toward Jake and the human delegation. Ambassador Martinez, your species has proven that biological limits are not as fixed as we believed. You have shown that intelligence and determination can overcome any obstacle. For this, you have earned something that cannot be legislated or voted upon. You have earned respect. The hall erupted in arguments as alien representatives debated among themselves. But the outcome was no longer in doubt. The Council could not force humanity to reverse their enhancements without admitting that their original weapon ban had been a mistake. They could not expel humans from the galactic community without losing the stability that enhanced human forces now provided. After hours of debate, the Council reached their decision. Councillor Vexithara announced it with obvious reluctance. The weapon ban on humanity is hereby lifted. All confiscated human military equipment will be returned. Furthermore, we offer humanity a permanent seat on the Council's Military Advisory Committee. Jake nodded graciously, but inside he was smiling. The Council had been forced to give humans more power and influence than they had ever possessed before the ban. As the session ended and the alien representatives filed out of the hall, Jake reflected on what had been accomplished. The Council had tried to make humans helpless, but instead they had forced humanity to discover their true potential. They had sharpened their bones, but more importantly, they had sharpened their will.